afternoon and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's Cablecast Post Agenda on the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR, and the 2026 First Quarterly Financial and Performance Report for June 24th, 2026. And we should have more council members with us shortly, but I would like to allow the first panel from our City Controller's Office to introduce themselves and to open with some opening remarks, if you'd like.
Thank you, Councilperson Strasburger. I just want to first acknowledge my colleagues who join me at the table today. Deputy Controller Pete McDevitt, who is at the table for the first time from the Controller's Office rather than Council Budget. Jamie Zala, the Chief Accounting Officer for the City of Pittsburgh, and Namita Dwarkanath, from our Controller's Office Solicitor. The way we thought we'd do this today is to go through our slide deck and then have a conversation and dialogue. So the Controller's Office, as folks know, has four primary functions: internal auditing, which helps support the city towards with targeted evaluation and guidance; accounts payable, we pay the city's bills; inspection and engineering, which confirms the work was done; and our accounting division, which manages our books and produces the annual report, financial report of record, the annual comprehensive financial report, which we'll be talking about today. Each year, our office puts out the ACFR. City Code requires us to create a general purpose financial statement by May 1, and our office goes beyond that and creates a document that meets the standards of the Government Financial Officers Association, including component units, additional statements, footnotes, and statistical tables. So what's different between the ACFR and the budget? The budget is a plan. The ACFR shows the results. These are the two main financial documents that the city produces each year. The budget is the chief policy document of the city, and it outlines what the city plans to accomplish through which policies and programs it funds. The ACFR shows the audited results in line with Government Accounting Standards Board of how well the city is spending, following its spending plan. For your awareness and the public's, the ACFR differs from OMB, the reports that OMB distributes, because those reports reflect a cash basis, which is the amount of money and when money is moved to and from accounts. Unlike OMB, the ACFR uses an accrual basis. It tells us what everything we did within a year costs us. This lets us know the true cost of government in a fiscal year. An accrual basis is also called GAAP, which stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Think about our 2025 water bill. The bills were received in 2025, but paid in 2026. But the ACFR shows it in 2025 because it was the year we used the water. That is a GAAP basis or an accrual basis. This deck is just a sample, or an example rather. If a house is purchased in 2025, but the deed transfer isn't collected until 2026, it would show up on our 2025 revenue. Now we'll just have a conversation about big picture with the general fund in 2025. We brought in $687 million in 2025, and we had $732 million leave the general fund. This is a net loss of $44.6 million. To compare, we had a $7.1 million gain in 2024. Highlighting where our money comes from, generally, taxes make up a larger portion of revenue this year than they did last. You can see real estate tax generates the highest percentage of our revenue. This will continue to be our most stable source of revenue as it's the least susceptible to an economic downturn. However, it is still vulnerable to a lowering common level ratio. Interest earnings, which are reflected under miscellaneous, make up a smaller proportion in 2025 due to the loss of ARPA funds in interest-bearing accounts. In terms of revenue, the city did quite well with revenue generally last year and outperformed budget on most major taxes. Despite outperforming budget, real estate earnings were still down compared to 2024. And as I mentioned, our interest earnings also went down as a result of no longer having ARPA. Where money goes. In 2025, we spent more on streets and sanitation than we did in 2024. We increased our contributions to culture and rec, as well as economic development. We spent slightly less on general government costs, including the bureaucratic functions that keep things running every day. In general, city expenditures were up a relatively modest amount, less than 2%. Salary increases, as noted on the deck, include overtime, which our office has continued to caution about. Salaries and overtime are not interchangeable, and having less staff who work more, particularly within public safety, leads to worse outcomes for both employee retention and quality service provision. Property services, including utilities like the water bill, are also notably increased. And as a reminder, 2025 was the first time we paid a full water bill. Our office has been quite vocal as well about the fleet, which is why we highlighted it and included it in this year's presentation. We spent an average of more than $1 million a month to maintain our fleet in 2025, with unanticipated costs reaching more than half of planned maintenance costs. A newer, safer fleet avoids high-cost repairs and allows for better strategic planning. We did see a large influx of new vehicles in 2025, especially for police, resolving a multi-year backlog. Fire continues to lack adequate vehicles, and costs and lead times continue to go up due to the monopolization of the fire apparatus industry. Capital project spending. In 2025, we funded just over $115 million in capital projects, and we spent almost $123 million, with over half going towards mobility and infrastructure projects. We're able to spend more than what was funded in the capital program because, unlike money in the operating budget, capital funds will continue to roll forward until they're spent. So this shows us catching up a bit on old projects. The American Rescue Plan Act. So the city has benefited from the American Rescue Plan Act federal COVID relief for the last several years. All ARPA funds needed to be obligated by the end of 2024, so 2025 was the last year without ARPA dollars. 2025 was the first year without ARPA dollars transferred into the general fund or sitting in interest-bearing accounts. We spent $20.1 million on ARPA-related projects this year and have $12.3 million remaining to spend by the end of 2026. The loss of ARPA revenue reflects the biggest impact on the general fund's net operating deficit in 2025. In 2024, we transferred $46.5 million to the general fund. In 2025, we transferred $0 to the general fund from the American Rescue Plan Trust Fund. In 2025, our net loss was $44.7 million. When we look at our typical revenue and expenses, the variances are relatively small. The reason we are seeing a $44 million net loss is because we no longer have the American Rescue Plan dollars to rely upon. We have cautioned repeatedly that ARPA dollars mask the city's spending problems, and the mask is off. ARPA accounts for almost exactly the net loss. Now we'll just touch on how 2025 impacted some of our major balances. Our unassigned fund balance is commonly called the rainy day fund. It's now at $166.1 million, approximately at 22.7% of all 2025 expenditures. In 2024, the fund balance was $199.9 million, and the 2025 figures represent a decrease of $33.8 million. Budget projections have this figure decreasing to $73 million by the end of 2030, representing the fund balance at 10% of expenditures. GFOA typically advises a fund balance of approximately 17%, or 2 months of spending to cover any unanticipated expenditures. Our statutory minimum is at 10%. Our gross bonded debt, we made a significant bond payment of $66 million last year, but we acquired a new bond for $61 million. Gross bonded debt shows an $8 million increase from last year to a total of $512 million. We are budgeted to spend more than $78 million in debt service in 2026 before payments drop to $48 million in 2027. The city's pension continues to be an extreme bright spot, with an increase of $162.2 million invested from 2024 to 2025. That brings the combined pension funds to a total of $931 million. And I want to highlight the bright spot that this is. In 2003, when the city was on the verge of Act 47, the fund was about 35% funded. It's 78% funded at our last meeting is a significant accomplishment for the city and the previous administrations. As you all know, the Controller's Office is not a budgeting entity, but our hope is that the ACFR can inform Council and OMB in their budget creation process each year. A thing to remember, and something we continue to talk about during the budgeting process, are our concerns with the so-called below the line transfers. The American Rescue Plan dollars have inflated revenues. Transfers out have complicated the true cost of the expense of government. The city uses transfers out currently to encompass both true expenditures and transfers to other city accounts. Below the line money out included after the general fund expenditures on our budget help revenues and expenditures look like they net to zero. However, they continue to deplete the fund balance. The Controller's Office has had a nice partner with OMB in trying to address this problem, and we look forward to continuing those conversations. When we talk about the fund balance at Council, we often use it as shorthand for the unassigned fund balance or our rainy day fund. We focus on the unassigned fund balance because it helps us understand whether we have enough money to deal with a short-term crisis. The unassigned fund balance is also a figure used to determine whether we are in compliance with the standard of the fund balance as a minimum of 10% of expenditures. The unassigned fund balance is just one small piece of the total fund balance, which reflects all money that the city carries. At the end of 2025, that figure was at $451 million. There are four kinds of fund balance which we'll describe. The first is, you good? The first kind of fund balance is the restricted fund balance. Those are funds that we have zero control over. They must be spent in a certain way based on state or federal law, and we can never free them up for another purpose. The second is the committed fund balance. These are funds that city code dictates for what they're used. The biggest item in this category is special revenue funds like the parks tax. It would take a legislative act by council to change how these are spent. The third kind of fund balance, and where we have the most money, is the assigned fund balance. This is money that we have agreed to use for a specific purpose, but that purpose can be changed without altering city code. These are our capital projects and encumbered contracts for goods and services. And then, of course, the unassigned fund balance reflects anything left over. Part of the reason it is helpful to understand all of the different fund balances is because the city's prior year roll forward has ballooned in the past 10 years. Director Price will expand on this more as she talks about the Q1 report. Prior year roll forward represents unspent money that was tied to a specific budget year. For example, if the Controller's Office had a contract to buy new check printers in 2025, but we were not able to purchase them, those funds would roll forward to buy printers in 2026. But when this happens year over year, we end up with a mismatch. We have prior year expenditures added to current year expenditures, but we only have current year revenues in the budget. We're happy to talk further about budgeting suggestions, including to separate out fund balances. PPS does this quite well. Reflect transfers to non-city funds as expenditures, the $12.5 million we sent to the URA. Reflect transfers to city funds as a committed fund balance, and reflect prior year roll forward as an assigned fund balance. As you all know, nope. No, that's it, yeah. Okay, sorry. Folks are not probably surprised. We've been warning about this for several years. A problem we can see is a problem we can fix. Last year's millage increase represents an important short-term solution. At the county level, regular assessments can help stabilize real estate revenues for the good, and on the state level, it's important to begin discussions about potential opportunities to increase our revenue streams, similar to the opportunities Philadelphia has as a first-class city. And with that, I'm happy to open up the floor for questions, and just want to thank my colleagues for the work that goes into this report.
Thank you, and thanks to your colleagues as well for putting this report together. I also want to give you kudos for, I understand that there was a little bit more that was meted out throughout the year prior to the ACFR, so that the last month and few weeks leading up to the final deadline was maybe more manageable than prior years. So wonderful job also just kind of making the the information and data that's necessary to compile, more manageable throughout the year. I want to note that we have been joined by council colleagues, Councilwoman Kim Salanetro, Councilperson Bob Charlin, Council President Daniel Lavelle, Councilwoman Deb Gross, and just as a reminder, there is and Councilwoman Warwick online. And it's been my intention as City Council Finance Chair to hold regular post agendas after each quarterly report. This one will be, coming after the ACFR report, the suggested and regular annual ACFR report post agenda session, because I think that we'll probably have some questions that are both germane for both the controller's office and controller and for our OMB and finance departments, and some questions might be asked twice and we can hear the same or differing answers depending on the vantage point. So with that, I will be happy to open up to my colleagues for questions, and I'll start with Councilwoman Salanetro.
Well, I want to thank you for all your hard work on this. You guys do a great job. I really only had just one quick question, just for my own personal clarification. The $12.3 million remaining in the ARPA funds, that has to be spent by 2026, the end of this year.
Correct.
Okay. That's really all I had. Just thank you for your hard work. I know it takes a lot to put all this together. Thank you.
Thanks goes to my colleagues who work on this month for half of their year.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to Councilperson Charland.
Yes, thank you for being here, and I know, especially Jamie, how much work you put into this, and I also know that this was an easier year for you because of the work you did beforehand, and so appreciate all of that and how this comes to be. I wanted to follow up. I kind of blanked on the last thing you said. It was one of your suggestions. You said something about what Philadelphia does, and I just didn't catch what you said.
Begin discussions about potential revenue opportunities to increase streams, like Philadelphia does as a city of the first class.
Okay, so looking at what else we could find revenue streams from.
Correct.
Do you have any? I mean, I know you're not you will tell me you're not a budgeting body and a taxing body, but any suggestions on things that you think would be helpful?
One would be increasing the local services tax. That's $52 a year, or $52 a year, $1 a week right now. That would be on a relative scale, something that we could do pretty easily, but we need approval from the state legislature. I don't know if Numita, Jamie, or Pete have
Yeah, a lot of the key is working with the state, because we're hamstrung on what we can do. We have like real estate taxes and parking tax, and there's not much else that we can fiddle with. So it's really lobbying the state to open up what cities of the second class, which is exclusively Pittsburgh, is able to tax and how much they're able to tax.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems we ran into last year. Is like there's not a lot of moves that are available to us, and just the unfortunate makeup of the state. The local service tax is such an easy thing to increase, and if you doubled it, from 52 to 104, no one is leaving the region because of that. No one's moving away. But unfortunately, there will always be more state representation outside of the city than in the city, which leads us to the problem that we run into here. But short of doing what other cities have done and just putting like a toll gate in to find ways to capture revenue from suburbanites, we're really hamstrung with our options there.
Yeah.
And so, I would love to be able to work on that, but unfortunately, it feels like $52 is going to be set in stone. And the fact that $52 is not adjusted for inflation, it was $52
Been the
when
same
Mike
for
Terzi
decades.
did it,
Yeah.
and it's
23 years. Yeah.
it's still $52 is crazy. I would love to change that. That's a blue sky dream. I'm not sure how realistic it is, but it would be great. I also wanted to mention, so I came in a couple minutes late and I was trying to watch on YouTube and screwed that up. I caught you talking about the deed transfer tax.
So in 2025, the deed
Yeah.
transfer tax bucked national trends and finished above budget. And, when you look at national trends across the country, real estate sales slowed pretty considerably. And we didn't suffer the same demise from that revenue stream. As you know, it's 5%. Let me see if I can find the actual number. We finished more than $10 million above budget in 2025 with the deed transfer tax, it also indicates that people are moving here and moving into the city, which is it is a bright spot when you think about our 2025, the outcome of our 2025 fiscal year.
So my understanding is when, HOF was being discussed in the Housing Opportunity Fund, which was never actually linked together, but was kind of built with the idea that this funds this, that the deed transfer tax was always going to, in order for HOF to work, or the Housing Opportunity Fund to work, we were going to have like one major sale every year, like one skyscraper move hands, something like that has to also happen. It can't just be balanced on the back of individual $200,000 property sales.
Residential.
Does your office keep track of how this money comes in, or do you just?
No, and I don't believe we have. Those files don't sit in our office. They would sit with real estate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that is a big concern, is that if you're only putting this on the back of residential property owners, it is an expensive tax. And we've cautioned for years, including my predecessor, Controller Lamb, that the cost of city government falls very heavily on the shoulders of the people who live here. And the deed transfer tax is another tax on residential properties, and therefore the people who live here.
Yeah, I can speak for a lot of people in my position, and definitely me personally, the deed transfer tax is a huge impediment to first-time home buyership.
I totally agree.
And we'd love to be able to find a way. There is a program through the URA, but you have to be under a certain income threshold that a lot of people aren't, in order to be able to take advantage of that, and being able to expand. First time, it is a dream of mine, and I know that we're not in a position right now to be able to do that, but I would love to be able to expand the down payment assistance that comes out of the deed transfer tax to help offset that. It is, I can tell you that I have multiple times looked at what it would look like to buy this house, and I'm good, and the deed transfer tax comes in, and I'm like, I'm not there yet. So, I think it's really important.
Yeah, and we need to do more in Pittsburgh to make home ownership accessible to more people. When you think about how to address some of these long-term problems that are in this report, it happens through growth. Obviously, it needs to be equitable growth. It needs to be fair and shared across the entire city. But we need to make sure we're growing, and we grow through providing opportunities and figuring out how to make home ownership accessible, whether that's someone who has rented for 35 years in the Southside Slopes, or who is a recent college graduate and has decided that they want to stay in Pittsburgh, and how do we help them purchase a first home in Greenfield. So I totally agree with you.
It's one of those things that makes us less competitive around our neighboring municipalities, that you can go to Dormont and not have to pay 5% on either side. You can, I don't know what theirs is, but I assume it's 3%. We don't, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a
something
barrier.
That
it absolutely is.
Makes it harder to live in the city of Pittsburgh, and that is therefore more earned income taxes and all the parking taxes and all the other things that we would collect. So I would love to see us be able to reform that. I know that right now is not the time, but
yeah.
Cool. I think I will pass it off to other members, and I'm sure I'll have some other things here, but
Thank you,
for your work.
Councilperson. And next, I believe we have Council President Lavelle for any questions he might have.
Thank you. I walked in late, so I'm still on
It's
the
okay.
presentation, so I apologize. So I don't really have any questions at the moment. We haven't discussed 2000. Have we? I apologize. Oh, I apologize.
We have not discussed 2026
Okay.
yet. We're starting with 2025 ACFR, and then second panel will be Finance and OMB to go
Got
through
it.
first quarter 2026.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So no questions, but I will note for my colleagues, because of local service tax, I heard come up, So there is a bill at the state right now, Bill 2488, that is proposed to increase the local sales tax from $52 to $156. Now, my understanding is they've gotten pushback so far because they're saying 156 is simply too high, that in the age where everyone's talking about affordability, et cetera, that seems untenable. But I meant to, if colleagues are open, to do a will of council to send to Harrisburg saying that we would certainly be supportive of that. And I will certainly work on that for next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was also, as the public is probably noticing, we had a very long council meeting that ended, and we had to all try to scramble back to our offices before we got back out here, but I was trying to watch on the monitor as well. So just some basic clarification on your very helpful charts. I noticed that you probably said it verbally, but again, I was doing two things at once when I was back in my office. So when we get to just where our money comes from on page 3, I noticed that your bar chart in the presentation is kind of all in percentages. Just remind us kind of what the numbers are. I think I've got it on page, I don't know, of the actual annual comprehensive financial reports in front of me. I can't really figure out what page it's on. There's a statement of net position that I'm looking at but maybe that's the wrong one.
So there's multiple statements within the ACFR, and they all tell a different story.
Well, I'm just kind of, the top of the chart, the top chart on your slideshow of page 3, just says where the money is coming from, so that people understand our kind of our basic revenue streams. Your presentation has it by percentage, but it doesn't really say how much is property tax and how much is earned income. And so maybe you said that out loud already, but if you could just say it for us again.
So in the ACFR, it's page 3. These have a couple extra things, but don't go too far off of the real estate taxes for our long-term was 150 million. Earned income was 145 million. And since we were just talking about deed transfer, it's very tiny.
Yes, I can relate to that.
Is 53 million.
We should have those things that trout fly fishermen have when they have a big magnifying glass for tying their tiny things. So I was struck that the bar chart, and I don't know that you called attention to it, that the bar chart and the amounts for earned income taxes are nearly as high as property taxes.
Yes.
As revenue. So when you're thinking about the pie chart of city revenue, that they're equal, that is a new thing. I mean, I feel 20 years ago, it was a 1-to-4 ratio, maybe 1-to-5. It was 20%. Earned income was much, much lower. And I'm not sure if anyone at the table kind of has a memory of that long, but it's so, and it's not because we raised the collection. It's just the incomes have increased that much, and property taxes haven't had the increase that we think will be there with a reassessment. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Pete looks like yes.
A lack of a reassessment over the past decade has definitely meant that those real estate taxes are going down with the common level ratio applied to it every year. And exactly like you said, people have earned more money year over year, so that we've collected the same percentage, but the money that they're making has gone up. So you're exactly right. It hasn't been this close a ratio ever.
So, and just as a reminder, again, if anyone's just kind of dropping into the conversation, that's not because we wanted it this way, right? We didn't want it this way, right? The county is in control of what your house is assessed at, or downtown buildings assessed at, what any of the buildings in the city are assessed at. So we cannot control that. And then similarly, the courts decided to unilaterally lower the percent at which you're actually charged relative to whatever out-of-date more than 12-year-old assessment is on your building. So those have interacted, and I'm not sure, we've said it before at this table, but if you wanted to elaborate anymore, I don't know if you know what that drop off has been with the common level ratio.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I will note that Philadelphia mandates countywide, therefore citywide reassessments. And because all 49 other states require regular reassessments, we are the largest county and therefore the largest city that doesn't mandate regular reassessments in the United States.
Right, and it's not because Pittsburgh
Right.
City
Yeah.
Council
Right.
has just chosen not to do that mandate. We actually don't legally have that power because for us, Philadelphia is both its city and its county and it has both powers. This table in this room does not have that power.
Correct.
Exactly
So just, again, as a reminder.
I believe the common level ratio this year is 50.6. So just about half of fair market value is all that we can collect as being assessed on.
Half of what the assessment is.
Half of what the fair market value is.
Half of what the fair market value is.
Half.
Elaborate that.
Sure. So the common level ratio dictates what percentage of the fair market value is assessed. So the assessment falls underneath the fair market value ratio or the fair market value to that amount. If you have a house worth $100,000, the common level ratio says that that house can only be assessed and taxed at $50,600.
All right, so let's use our vocabulary correctly. But who establishes the fair market value?
That's a great question. Fair market value tends to be assessed by the sale price most of all. So,
I don't believe that's true.
well, that's when reassessments happen because there's an assessment that happens when you have your fair market value. It's done by comps as well. We're not doing a great job of assessing either fair market value or assessment across the city. So when people are debating what their assessment should be, they're contesting both their fair market value and they're using the common level ratio to do
And
it.
Are you talking about the cases where someone's actually in front of the County Board of Appeals?
Yes, in front of BPAR,
So
yeah.
it's not of the 147,000 parcels that exist in the city.
I apologize, I don't think I understand your question.
That Board of Appeals isn't reviewing the value of every single parcel in the city.
No,
And
certainly
so
not.
it isn't basing, that Board of Appeal has the power to put the fair market value of your house at the most recent sale price. But it isn't doing that for each one of the parcels in the county.
No, it's when it's contested, when there's major
And
permits
so when I
done.
say the county has to do a reassessment to establish the values of all of the parcels in the county, including all of the parcels in the city.
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
Yes.
right.
That requires redoing all the fair market values so that the assessment value or the
Right.
assessment ratio can be back at 1.
Right.
So fair market value matches
as we sit here
assessment.
today, if your next door neighbor bought their house for $1 million, they're not necessarily being assessed at that. That is not the established fair market value, nor is it what they're being assessed at. So they're at probably a 56%.
50.6. It's worse.
50% basically, 50.6 of what their oldest fair market value was from 12 years ago.
That's right. So we're losing on two
and
fronts.
so this is the problem. But thank you for helping us with our vocabulary. I think we tend to broadly just say what your assessment is, meaning your fair market value, but there's two different terms. So we just kind of get a grip on what our two highest revenue streams are, both real estate and earned income tax, and those are nearly equal. I just want to say I agree with Councilman Charland on the deed transfer tax. I think we were always concerned about it being unfair burden on first-time homebuyers. It took us a year of struggling over that change, and it was a difficult vote. And if there was some other fund that took the burden off of home buyers, I think that would be a really important change to make, to find a different source of income to lower that deed transfer tax rate, because we're losing home ownership and it's going down. And it is, I think, something that we should be concerned about, whether people can build equity, who has access to property value equity. So I think that's definitely work in front of us, and I couldn't agree more. I think you already went over again. There's like percentages. Maybe you already said it for expenditures is the very next page, page 4. There's numbers in the box at the bottom of the page that says, total salaries are $295.8 million or so. And then that's up $9 million from the previous year. But in the bar chart, I'm trying to read the tiny numbers at the top where your money goes. So the biggest expenditure by far is the public safety department, which is police, fire, EMS, animal control. And that says, it says 44.6%. Is that the percent of the expenditures?
Yes.
So total expenditures. And total expenditures was roughly $640 million. For 2025 expenditure. I'm just on one page.
640 million.
And so what is 44.4% of 640 million?
Calculators.
Be much faster to do it this way.
It's less than 320.
6.8. Wait, did I say that correctly?
It's less than 320 because that would be 50%.
44.4, it's about $284 million.
284 million. And then the next one says highways, streets. But this is only operating budget?
Yes. Yes.
Because like paving is under operating. I'm just wondering why that's so much, because I know there's not that many employees. It's not, public safety has like 1,000 employees easily. Between fire and police, it's got more than 1,000. But I'm wondering why that's nearly 25% of expenditures. Because Domi doesn't have that many employees.
It might be. I think includes part of DPW as well.
For like
Maintenance. Some maintenance. It's something that I can dig into.
I don't think it's all payroll.
It's not all payroll.
No,
It's not.
I mean, it would go towards all the maintenance and stuff for the trucks as well.
Yeah.
All the pothole patching, but
I don't think it would cover trucks, but it would cover
maybe the
asphalt.
maintenance for them. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I feel like we can, we were pushing like paving expenditures closer to 10 million, if I'm not mistaken, right? For a while, we were only around 6 million.
Last year for paving, I can't remember. That was in the capital
It's complicated
budget,
just for the record that we don't have these things kind of memorized for the public, because some of the paving is done by the utilities, and so some miles of streets maybe aren't being covered by our budget. They're being covered by the PWC budget for reconstruction, or God knows, in my district these days, People's Gas, where there's tons of construction all over the place. So I'm guessing that that's both payroll and like the direct costs of asphalt, of paving. I'm not sure. And then general government, I think, is self-explanatory. It's kind of like you've lumped in like all of the other payroll and like stuff. I'm curious about that water bill. Do you happen to know if you've got it under general government? Because 25% of 640 million, we're looking at like 180 million.
I think that gets paid out of DPW.
Oh, so maybe
That's where I'm thinking that might also be within there. It's something that I don't have off the top of my head.
Okay. But if the public wants to download this, it is in this.
Yes, there is a
All
lot.
the answers to my questions are actually in this gargantuan stack of paper. I was just wondering, since I didn't know what had been summarized into the bar chart, so we will definitely find that. Does anybody want to chime in now? Okay. So, and then I'll just flip back down to the elephant in the room is like part of a herd of elephants that's in the room with like every mid-sized city.
Yep.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we're
Not every mid-sized city. Most American cities are dealing with budget deficits.
so, bigger cities and smaller cities that this.
Cities that you think of as fast-growing, cities that you know in the Sun Belt, everybody's dealing with budget deficits right now, and the American Rescue Plan for all cities masked spending problems and allowed us to ignore inflation for 4 years, and now this is the outcome. And most cities are having reporting deficits for the preceding year, and we really need to focus on figuring out how to address that in the immediate term, and then the longer term strategies that we can employ as a city to incentivize growth and figure out how to bring people here.
So you say it's inflation.
I said that it masked the city. It allowed the city to ignore inflationary pressures on the budget for 4 years because we were depositing between $40 and $50 million a year into the operating budget from federal COVID relief dollars. Again, since it's probably not in the bullet points, but so in the longer report, does it show the increase in like commodity prices or inflationary costs on direct purchases? I mean, you would be able to, we don't highlight inflation like as a chart year over year.
But can you see some of the categories of direct costs?
And I will mention to all of you, when you voted to reopen the budget, you added fuel costs because of the inflationary pressures on the cost of petroleum. And you also see that with paving, because paving's made with asphalt's made with petroleum. And as that increases, our ability and capacity to pave is diminished.
And so it's not on the revenue side as well with the central business districts across the city?
You see that in the...
across cities, you said of all sizes.
The growth in the wage tax, obviously it doesn't mirror inflation directly.
And it's not about central business districts. You can not have wages that aren't downtown.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure I understand your question.
For 5 years, 6 years, we've been discussing, post-COVID, let's say, so 5 years, we've been saying that because the remote work and the changes in work arrangements have decreased occupancy in the largest value buildings, correct, again, across the country, right? Generally in central business districts. And so that they have gone into forfeiture, or been sold at deeply discounted rates, or downwardly appealed their assessments because it took a few years rolling out, because commercial leases are generally 5-year leases, if I'm not mistaken, right? And so they couldn't break their lease, in 2021, but by 2022, 2023, they were breaking their leases or renegotiating their leases, taking smaller footprints. And that is part of the occupancy problem. That's part of the real estate problem, that larger buildings that supplied a lot of the revenue in our property taxes appealed to the County Board of Appeals to downwardly appeal their assessments. This is the conversation that we've been saying here at the table now for 3 or 4 years. You don't see that impact here on the revenue side?
Yeah, that's reflected directly in the real estate taxes.
Okay, I thought you just said that it was expenditure or expenses pressure.
So the ARPA dollars allowed the city to ignore the rapid increase in prices of goods, commodities, food, everything, fuel, because we weren't addressing any cost. We weren't doing any cost containment in those 4 years because we had effectively padded our revenue streams with those COVID relief dollars. So I'm talking about it in that context. And when you look at the operating deficit, yeah.
We'll just say it's both, right? So there's both inflationary pressures driving up our expenditures, and also we've lost some of the revenue on property tax, especially the larger properties.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right that we lost revenue in property tax from downtown properties, and we accounted for it with the ARPA dollars, but didn't make any changes for whenever the ARPA dollars would go away, and now they're away, and the real estate values in downtown are still down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, again, we kind of call attention to it here. We talk about it other places. So I think those are my thoughts going into like the next panel of like, okay, so where are we at this year? So I appreciate it. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Councilmember Warwick, joining us online. Do you have any questions for the controller or her office?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the fund balance is currently 166.1. Is that what?
The unassigned fund balance is 166.1. Yes, that's money. That's our rainy day fund. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And 17% is like the best practice, or is that the legally required?
17% is the best practice, and 10% is what's required per city code.
Oh, okay, great. And what would the 17% be?
That represents 2 months worth of operating expenditures, and it would allow the city to respond more appropriately in an emergency. Having any percentage is obviously a good practice. The 17% is recommended by GFOA.
And what would 17% be?
In dollars.
So it's currently 166.1.
79. So 7% more than 79. So it's 79 million is 10%. Jamie's doing the math at the moment.
It would be about 109 million.
Okay, so we're actually okay then on the rainy day fund.
This year,
Yeah.
but it's gonna like get cut in half in the next 5 years.
This budget, the 2026, will impact the unassigned fund balance even more dramatically. And it's budgeted to continue to go down. So the goal is to get ahead of a problem like this before we hit a crisis point.
Got it. Okay. And then you said that the debt service is current, so the debt service, what we're paying in interest basically, or just paying back our debt, is 78 million this year, but that will drop to 48 million next year.
Yes, and that is a result of decisions that were made in 2020 and 2021, not knowing what, if any, federal COVID relief dollars were coming.
Right.
And we had a dramatic and overnight change in our revenue with parking and amusement taxes. And obviously there was a contraction in the economy at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay. And then I know Pete has explained this to me about 100 times, and for some reason I just cannot get it through my head. Can you explain again this concern about expenditures out, right? Like the trust funds being treated incorrectly. I'm still not clear on why the accounting with that is difficult the way that we're doing it now.
So in the budget, there's rules in accounting. There's generally accepted accounting principles that we follow to build the ACFR. In the budget, there are best practices that you can follow or you can ignore, and we ignore it and put all of the transfers out that is money leaving the general fund as a transfer out, so it's not available anymore, but we don't count it as an expenditure. If we did count it as an expenditure, in year 5 of the 5-year plan, we would be under the 10% minimum expenditures as a percentage of the fund balance. So,
oh, I see. So you're saying, so when you say, you're talking about like money that we send out to the URA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Right.
The Housing Opportunity Fund, the payment for the housing bond, all of that is money that goes out of the general fund that we don't count as an expenditure in the budget. But when you follow actual accounting rules, that's money spent. That's money that is no longer available in the unassigned fund balance.
Okay, I'm tracking. But you had also said that also applies to Stop the Violence Fund, no?
Yeah. I mean, that goes into a different fund, so it's no longer available in the general fund. It's an expenditure out of the general fund. We just don't show it as one.
So that's the one that I don't understand, because the Stop the Violence money is we're using it. Like, so when you go into the various pages of the budget, right?
Yeah.
It's clear, like, if, whatever we're paying for OCHS is being paid for with this Stop the Violence.
Yeah. So it's actually.
So how is that not like treating it as an expenditure, so to speak?
It's counted technically as a transfer out, so it's still leaving the general fund.
But we still have control over
We
it.
still have control over it because it's in a special revenue account.
So it's unlike a transfer in that way.
And
Right, so it's
but
still
yeah,
getting
it's
accounted for in the expenditures, right? Like this, when we add up all the if we're spending it internally.
We are adding it up, but it's no longer within the general fund. So the easiest way for me to think of it is anything that is completely leaving any of our bank accounts is an expenditure. We no longer have that money. Anything that we're moving from one bank account that we own to another one, so the Stop the Violence is a good example of that. It's leaving from the general fund into our special revenue fund. That's a transfer out because we still have that money, but it's no longer part of our unassigned fund balance that's within the general fund. It's now essentially a committed fund within a different bank account that has been decided it's going to be used for this purpose.
Okay. I still don't know if I understand it for the monies that are going out, like that are like going to the URA, like not in our hands anymore. But at any rate, that's all right. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask, so about this thing about previous, so I understand the problem. If you have, so you've budgeted whatever, however much money to buy printers, I think was the example, but you didn't actually buy those printers in 2025, but you're buying them now in 2026. Is there a reason that we're not kind of creating a pot that's like, this is 2025 operating and we're sort of mixing it in with 2026? That seems very confusing.
So for accounting, we are kind of doing that. It's just the difference between what is essentially our income statement and what is our balance sheet. An income statement judges what the money did within a singular year. So we look at what money we brought in that year and then what money we paid out. And since a lot of those expenditures, not a lot, but there's a good amount of expenditures that are not related to that year, we're not looking at it within that budget. But on the balance sheet side, we are. Those are within our committed funds. So it's where the fund balances, those 4 different fund balances, tell a really great year-over-year story. When we look at things, a lot of parts that we talk about during our press conference is what happened to our unassigned fund balance. Our unassigned fund balance, even though we had a $44 million deficit this year, our unassigned fund balance went down by 33 million. So that other 10, 13, whatever million, that actually came from our committed funds, which is money that should have been part of the roll forward that we reduced it by. So on the balance sheet that is being accounted for, it's just an income statement is only looking at that singular year.
So I guess my question is, I'll say this: if it works internally, right? If you all can understand that and keep it straight, that's good. But how can we? I mean, that's fine. But how can we make sure that when we're talking to the public about these numbers, that things like that are clear, so that we're not mixing? So that we're not saying, for example, I mean, I remember something about when we were talking about 2025, it was like, oh, there's a deficit, but it wasn't accounting for those things. It wasn't accounting for some things that we didn't have to pay or whatever. It was like, oh, well, actually, if we account for those things, then there isn't a deficit. It's actually, we're in the green. That's very confusing for the public.
So I think I do remember.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I think I do remember last year, and part of that is also going into a further somewhat confusing pattern of just accounting, and that's the accrual basis, where there are certain things, some of it is just timing, that during the ACFR process I am doing, pulling in revenues that are actually related to at that time would have been related to 2024, that hit in 2025, putting it into the correct year and doing the same for expenses or expenditures. But there are a couple other things that happen as well. We generally accepted accounting principles and GASB decided to do fun and confusing things with how we record leases, and that actually, the first year we did for some things last year, gave us more revenue. It's more book revenue than it is money in our banks. But I do believe that was a circumstance where I think last year, on the cash basis, we had a profit of
7 million.
I think it was 3 million, and then GAAP basis was 7 million. So some of those are through the accrual basis, which is a little bit of a truer sense because it's accounting for things that actually happened in that period of time.
Okay, it's still confusing, but that's okay. I mean, I appreciate that's the expertise that you all have. I'm just trying to sort of think from the public's point of view. So right now, I mean, earlier in the year we talked a lot about, the public heard a lot about deficits, right? And obviously we did a tax increase that helped. And I mean, I think at one point there was a headline that was like $40 million deficit, and then we opened the budget again, and we pulled some money. So are we in an operating deficit right now?
Yes.
Yep.
And what is that? If you could explain that, just to sort of give that clarity.
Maybe the best way to think about it is the money that we had to pull from our savings account, our unassigned fund balance, was $33 million. So when you don't bring in roll forward money, which was about $12 million last year, and you only pull from our savings account, we pulled $33 million from the city's savings account last year to function as a government.
Got it. So that's just saying, like, according to the budget that we passed. Yeah. So we went into our but we didn't bring ourselves below where we should be in the rainy day fund by doing that.
No. But the pattern moving forward with revenue and expenditures is very concerning. And we will get to that number very quickly if we don't act and move on cost containment measures and focus on long-term growth.
Yeah. So everybody has their. I of course am not. I'm not a fan of austerity measures. I mean, obviously, if there's places that we can trim, or be more efficient in how we do things currently, that's all great. But I'm not a fan of scaling back services, right? I think there's actually like numerous services that we need to expand on to meet the needs of our residents. But that aside, if you could put a number out there, and I know this is tricky, but how much additional, for us as a city to kind of be at a place where you as the controller kind of can take sort of a deep breath and be like, oh, okay, this is actually comfortable. This feels comfortable. What would that number be? If like every year we were to increase the revenue by X, then you would feel better about the state of affairs moving forward.
I mean, last year I wish we had brought in $33 million additional dollars. There's
Me
not
too.
but there's not. I mean, it depends on what you spend to know what you need to bring in to cover those costs, and that's forward looking. And as we've all said, the controller's office doesn't do budgeting, but we need to figure out how to make sure that we are bringing in enough revenue to cover our expenses, or we need to make sure that we're only spending as much as our revenue brings in. And I know that people have different mindsets about how to approach that, but the reality is the trajectory that we're on. We need to address cost containment in the immediate term. We need to focus on growth. We need to figure out how to bring in additional revenue. And, what that number is would depend upon the year.
I can tell you that 2 years ago, your budget director told you that you were $75 million short of being truly fiscally healthy.
Okay. So 75 million. I mean, that would be, so that
was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Per year.
Yeah. to lower how much we're taking out in a bond every year and increase the pay-go transfer to buy more vehicles, to be able to demo more condemned properties,
Right.
just to make sure we're paying for everybody's health care and can give everybody a good cost of living increase and provide all the services that we want to provide.
Then to be able to do that, I mean, again, that's what I'm sort of looking for. But so if we say that like 33 million is what we dipped into our savings account this year, right?
Last year.
2025.
Sorry, right. Is it, ideally we would not have done that, right? We would have just used, what we have, but
Ideally, yeah.
so somewhere between 33 million and 170 million.
I mean, yes.
I'm just trying to get like sort of just for the public, like just for the public's understanding, right? Like short of cutting, I mean, like there's ways to address this issue, right? So it would, and probably ultimately would be a combination, but either we cut services and save money that way, or we increase revenue, right? And to the tune of like $100 million a year, just to kind of, land somewhere in the middle, would be the amount of money that the city needs to increase its revenue by to kind of be able to really provide the services that we need to, right? We're talking about vehicles, talking about after school programs, we're talking about all of these things, right? That we need to provide for our residents.
Again, I mean, I would just go back, like, our office doesn't budget, but we just need to make sure that we're covering the cost of government year over year so that the fund balance, unassigned fund balance, our rainy day fund is available in an emergency. Those decisions are for you all. I obviously don't want to cut services, but I do think that there are ways that the city can contain costs that don't necessarily mean that we're, not providing essential services to city residents. And I would never advocate for that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, and I would love to hear more about those. That's probably a separate post agenda. Yeah, at any rate, okay, I don't think I have any other questions. I do feel like what it comes down to is, I mean, yes, perhaps some process improvements and whatnot to make things run more efficiently, right? I'm sure that there are opportunities there. But also the need to increase revenue is clear, and in the near future, right?
I mean, it depends on how much you're spending every year, and that would dictate if additional revenue is necessary.
But when we're looking at this precarious rainy day fund, we are looking at that for next year. Like, what year does the rainy day fund become scary?
I mean, 2025. No,
I mean, but right now it's
at the end of 2030, it'll be at 10% of expenditures.
And that's using the questionable
transfers out versus expenditures.
At the end of this year, it's going to be 15.5% is what the operating budget shows.
Okay, so already at the end of this year, we'll be below not the legal limit, but the best practice.
Yeah, below GFOA best practices.
Right, by the end of this year, and
Correct.
Then it will just progressively get worse going forward.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So again, I just want to. I mean, whether it's streamlining and finding cost savings or increasing revenue, the need is there for us to figure something out.
Yeah, I would say the sooner the better to address the structural issues with the budget, or with the budget, the expenditures, revenue, et cetera.
Yeah. No, I agree. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate just sitting down and having these conversations. It's always helpful just to kind of, even if it's repetitive, even if I make Pete repeat to me 100 times how transfers in and transfers out, it's helpful to hear it again. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilman Wilson, any questions from you?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry I missed the presentation. I did have some questions. This unassigned fund balance, this is
That's the rainy day fund.
This is the rainy day fund.
Yes.
I heard you say that earlier. And just to get in the weeds a little bit, it's just called unassigned because the obvious is that
It's not obligated
there.
anywhere
It's not
else.
obligated anywhere else.
Yeah. That's money that's available to be used in a circumstance like last year when we spent significantly more than we brought in.
Okay. I mean, I've just been listening along. I mean, it's definitely concerning. I can hear some members working through the concerns through the questions. This alternate budgeting suggestions. Do you mind just going over this?
Jamie? So I'll turn it over to Jamie Zella, who's the Chief Accounting Officer.
I think a lot of this is just how, to go off of Councilmember Warwick, of how we can talk about this. Some of it gets confusing when we're talking about a deficit that is different from what our fund balance is showing. And these are just some different ways that we've seen other cities, or like we have Pittsburgh Public Schools go through. Pittsburgh Public Schools, it's very tiny on the paper, but they go through it where they show their revenues, their expenditures, and then go through the beginning balance of their fund and kind of, is it the change?
Yeah, they have a deficit.
Yeah. They're showing their deficit with the ending full fund balance. So that's including the rainy day fund, that's including their committed, their restricted, and assigned, and then going back through and actually defining those to go then down and show here's the money left over that our government has.
Mm-hmm. And you think this would be helpful just to show like a true number?
I do. I think that's a little bit more of a truer story to tell. They're both true stories, but much like in business, we see businesses have bad years here and there, but they're padded in between with good years. So we know that can happen. That's a normal thing because a income statement or statement of activities, sometimes you're spending more, but it's only 1 year worth of stuff. Your fund balance is going to show here is from the inception of us being a government, the money that we have collected and all of the profits that we've had throughout our time being here.
And is this like the way you see it currently versus the way it could be changed? Sorry, let me rephrase this. The way it could be changed, this is the way it's laid out, basically. That's what it sounds like to me. Like the way it's laid out, the way we see our numbers, the way we're doing the calculations, that all rests in OMB. There's not like an ordinance to say how this is laid out.
No, it's kind of up to you how you want to show it. Like I said, there's not hard.
When you say it's up to them,
City Council gets to set the final budget. So OMB can send over a budget, and you can change those transfers out that are actual payments to the URA to show them as an expenditure.
Mm-hmm. But the budget that people can download online is ultimately, that's OMB's decision, right? What they put on there.
It's what you pass.
That's what we pass. So literally, we could pass the budget. We can manipulate that final document.
Yeah.
But who does do that manipulation?
I mean, now it's Kirsten and Sherry. Sorry, Director Walmsley and Assistant Director Rylowski.
Yeah. Okay. But it originates in the mayor's office.
Yeah, OMB develops the initial budget, but
yeah,
you have a
traditionally
very
we don't
good budget office. That
so
can
have we
make
done
those changes.
that, or traditionally we just don't do that?
It has been done. I mean, some of those transfers out initially, OMB had put them as expenditures, and then the council budget office had moved them to transfers out years ago, and they've just kind of lived that way ever since.
Mm. Okay. Not something I typically think of like that. A final document, we want it to look like this. Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Controller Peter, Jamie, Namita. Tell your husband I say hello.
I always will.
Yes. So no, thank you. This information is all very good. And I know you probably went over this, but let me just clarify for my own sake, because I was thinking about this and somebody was talking about it. I'm thinking, oh, they probably just covered it, but I wasn't fully engaged. So our trust funds, we have Housing Opportunity Fund, we have Stop the Violence. What else do we have?
We have about, I don't know, between 80 and 90 probably right
Yeah.
now, trust funds.
Yeah.
Or if you're talking about only the transfers out and expenditures
Yeah,
that are
yes.
trust funds.
Right.
So it's the Housing Opportunity Fund, the Stop the Violence Trust Fund. And again, those are distinct because one is a transfer and one is an expenditure. The Tech Modernization Fund, I think are those the only three that are below the line?
PAYGO.
Oh,
We actually
PAYG.
have
Yeah.
That's not a trust fund.
a slide in there. It's slide 18, which, or maybe a little bit later, it's the true cost of transfers out, where for the ACFR purposes, we detailed out here are what we are considering the transfers out. These are the items that are staying within city bank accounts, but no longer within the general fund.
Right. So in your reporting, it's an expenditure.
Yes. Well,
And even though it's within the city and it's used for
Some of them are expended,
some are
like-
expenditures and some are
Right.
transfers.
Right.
And
Yeah, no.
the expense is the money, the $12.5 million we send to the URA is not a transfer. That's an expenditure.
Okay.
And it's no different mechanically than us paying, for paying Folino for paving or something else like that.
Right. Okay, so we're talking about, let's just use a HOF in the Stop the Violence Fund. So half of that basically is an expenditure, is what you're saying, because
The money that goes to the Stop the Violence
so
Fund
say
is a
$20 million
transfer.
a year, somewhere in that ballpark.
Last year it was I think it was 10 million to the Stop the Violence Trust
Yeah.
Fund and 12.5 to the
Okay,
URA
so
because
roughly
there was the
20
Housing Opportunity Fund and then we have the $2.5 million bond repayment that we make.
Okay, and of that, between those two entities, those two trust funds, so say $22 million, roughly half of that is, on your report, is an expenditure.
Yes,
Yes.
the transfers out into the URA is an expenditure for us.
That's an expenditure, right?
Yes.
Right. Even though it stays within city government, basically, in one fashion or another, it's an expenditure for us.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Would now you talked about the D-transfer tax being surplus of $10 million.
Above
Yeah.
budget, yes.
Yeah.
And that's probably indication of the price of real estate, number one. I'd like to think it's new people moving in, but do we have any sure facts on that, or we just know about the surplus and
I don't believe that
Take
we
it.
have the ability to know
Sure,
where
that's
people
what
are
I'm asking,
going. We
right.
don't track people to that level, but I, again, will reiterate that it bucks macroeconomic
Yeah,
trends in the United
right.
States. Like we have a stable housing market,
Right,
which I
right.
think is healthy and good,
Right.
and a good long-term indicator for the city.
Yeah, so I'd like to think it reflects people moving into the city of Pittsburgh. I don't think it does, honestly. Maybe a little bit. I think it more reflects like just in the neighborhoods that I represent, the housing costs have gone up 100% over the past 5 or 6 years, I would say. So I think it more of an indication of cost of real estate, which, obviously a higher percentage and higher percentages paid into the D-transfer tax. And I agree with my colleagues as to I wish, it becomes a barrier for some people, more expensive to move to the city of Pittsburgh. But it's lucrative and, we have to collect money. I say all the time now, just from being here for 9 years, I feel like, first of all, our population from the time I was a kid has decreased 100%, right? It went from 700,000 to 300,000. So we have a dwindling tax base, but we still have big city expenses. We still need a police force of this size. We still need paramedics. We still need fire, public works.
All
So-
of that infrastructure built for 700,000
That's right.
people.
And factor in bridges, by
Yeah.
the way, you know? I think to myself, I become envious of these southern Florida cities. I'm like, pave the roads once, it's probably good for 20 years versus ours is good for 5 years.
Tripled in the last
Yeah, right. Their population is growing and the people are moving there. But more importantly, they don't have bridges to one bridge could set us back, could turn us upside down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And I know we're making those efforts, but those costs are always going to be there for us because we can't get around Pittsburgh without the bridges. Factor in our roads and how difficult they are to pave and the climate and, all that. So it's no wonder southern cities, I feel like, it's easier for them to balance their budgets because they don't have the expenses we have. So I always say we have big city expenses, but now we have a small city budget in the way of 300,000 property. Well, not property owners, 300,000 people living in the city of Pittsburgh. So safe to say, I would say, we decreased our housing stock or our homeowners by 100% in the past year. So here we have a dwindling. So therefore, we're forced to find new ways, new initiatives. We took the necessary action to raise our property tax, which will be helpful. And I feel, ultimately we had to do it. So any suggestions? I know I heard you talking about, was it the commuter tax, $52 a year? Is that
and then Council President Lavelle mentioned that it's before the state legislature right now, which is great news, and sign me up for the will of council.
Yeah. And is that based on, Council President, is that based on a percentage or is that just a flat fee?
It's a flat fee.
Yeah. $1 a week.
And that's for every municipality across Pennsylvania?
Just Pittsburgh.
Oh, just Pittsburgh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that will make a significant impact if we're able to collect that.
Yeah, and again, it's up to the state legislature to agree.
Right.
We need that authority.
We need to go back to Harrisburg, Madam Chair, I think, for a couple of reasons.
I hear it's going to struggle to get out of committee this year, so we really do need to.
Yeah.
The pressure on.
That's, I think that's the key to a lot of this is working with the state to unlock those kind of things.
Yeah, right. And I was surprised, like Councilwoman Gross said, that the payroll expense tax is kind of going to outweigh our property tax.
Our wage tax.
Yeah, our wage tax. Yeah. In the next couple of years, we'll probably pass that.
Yeah.
I would say, right?
Yeah.
And let me ask you this in that note. If the county were to proceed with reassessments and say they're done, from what I understand, it's going to take 2 years at least just to even do that once they do decide to take it up. Say they're done. Now, from what I understand, it has to be neutral revenue. So what would that mean for our budget? What would that mean for our revenue?
We're capped at 5% increase.
It's the windfall provision.
Yeah. So it would likely, all the values would go up, but we would have to adjust our millage down. That's what happened last time. But GFOA best practices say that you should do that every 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. So every 2 to 3 years, we could have a 5% bump. But as Councilwoman Gross was saying, the city has absolutely no control over doing that. Right. Every other state. Sorry.
Senator Fontana introduced legislation to mandate it at the state level and have it be paid for across the state. Because the other thing you do run into is in some of the communities that are on county borders. I mean, Westmoreland County hasn't done a reassessment, I believe, since Jimmy Carter was president. So the thing to remember too is when it's just Allegheny County and you have people in Monroeville. I mean, people do decide to settle in Murraysville because property taxes are so low there. They obviously provide significantly less in terms of human services, but when I believe that it would be best handled at the state level, and it would just take away the politics of it, right? Mm-hmm. This is going to happen every 5 years. It's going to happen every 10 years, whatever the rhythm is. But it just needs to, it needs to happen, and it would be preferable if it was done at the state level and Senator Fontana's legislation came to fruition.
Right. I feel the only true way to a healthy budget where we can all be happy and have enough funding to go around is to increase the population. And that's a long road.
Yeah.
I think this year we at least stayed neutral.
So when you look at the census from 1970 and then to 80, 90, 2000, 2010, I mean, our population declined, drastically is the word I would use. And it's stable. It was stable in 2020, and then estimates, obviously a full census isn't done annually. The one thing we all have to talk about, and I speak about at length when I'm in community groups, is my grandparents who came to Pittsburgh all came from 4 different countries. The unfortunate reality is that we will benefit from immigration, and that's true if people come from Harrisburg, and it's true if people come from Honduras. Mm-hmm. And what we need to do as a city, as a county, and as a state, and quite frankly, as a country, is remember where we came from, and allow people who are seeking safe haven and want to immigrate to the United States to come here. And we need to do everything we can to incentivize them to come to Pittsburgh. It's cheaper to buy than to rent here. We have cultural amenities that really, really big cities have, and it's much, much more affordable to live, to navigate, and to be, a member of a vulnerable population in Pittsburgh and in Western Pennsylvania. And our historic roots, dictate that is true. And I can speak to that personally, as my family came from Eastern Europe, and I think that we need to really focus on that and those opportunities, because when we can be a welcoming place for people who are coming, again, from Harrisburg or from Honduras, we need to, because that is the secret to economic growth. And again, a rising tide lifts all boats. And when you look at the shared economic growth that happened from 1910 through the 70s here, it was because of immigration.
It's a population boom, right? I mean, and I agree with you. If I don't care who buys our homes, I want them to live here and abide by our laws, and that's great, because it means more for our annual revenue. We struggle with that in Pittsburgh. I think partly is because of our climate, just
Yeah, but we can't
for some people.
Our Januaries don't compete with a lot of Januaries in a favorable light. But what I will tell you is people can come here, they can go to school in Pittsburgh, their families can do well and thrive, and those are the things that we need to talk about.
I agree. We have many more advantages and disadvantages. But for somebody moving from a different country, they're probably like, what's the degree in Pittsburgh in the winter? And
snow.
Compare us to like Georgia or Florida. It's like, okay. So that's kind of a struggle, but I agree. I feel like our future home buyers are mostly going to be immigrants. I don't see people flocking here from Florida and Texas and things of that nature. It's more.
And there are things that we can do to attract we have more universities here than most major cities, and, even those that are double in size. And as someone who didn't grow up here, and, I'm a Pittsburgher by choice, as I talk about a lot, we do have young, recent college graduates and people who are looking for opportunities and want to start their lives and careers. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that this is a place that they consider.
Yep. I agree. And that's a long term. If we can increase our population by 2% next year, if we can increase our population,
we can stabilize our population.
That's a win. Yeah, right. I mean, at least we're trending.
Correct.
We could say we're trending. I think, again, this year, did we remain neutral? Did we gained residents?
The census is only done every 10 years, so the estimates are that we grew in 2025.
Got it. So after the new administration came in, they came out with their analysis as to where we financially were, and that ranged from $30 to $40 million kind of in arrears. But your accounting is $44,726,000. This number here.
Our net loss in 2025 was $44 million. Yes, right. 33 million of that came from our savings account, our rainy day fund, or the unassigned fund balance, and another 11 million came from transfers from other accounts.
Right. Do you think we're projected to have to tap into that again in order to balance our budget?
We absolutely will tap into it again in 2026.
It's actually built into the budget.
Yeah. We are.
I should know that.
We will, again, significantly utilize the unassigned fund balance in 2026.
And what percentage are we required to have in that?
By city code, 10% of expenditures.
10%. What percentage are we at?
We'll be at 15% by the end of 2026.
So after we withdraw to keep our afloat this year, we'll be at 15%.
Assuming we follow the budget, yeah.
So what kind of hit does 30 million take on that percentage-wise? Is it...
We went from about 24%.
Okay.
In 2025, and so
we're down like 17 or 18, and then that next time we dip into it, will put us at 15, and we are going down a dangerous road. As you said,
it's an unsustainable trajectory.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. We've made progress. The administration, I should say, has made progress with the nonprofits, which, I totally agree with their approach. To take them to court and sue them was costing us money. Just didn't make sense to me. I just feel like it was a losing battle. I think now that they see in cooperation, I think just recently we got $3 million commitment from CMU, which was fantastic. Not to say that's going to cover all our downfall or all our shortcomings, but but it will help.
What I'll tell you too is voluntary payments are very likely to be our most significant revenue increase this year and next year.
Right. That's great,
Last
yeah.
year we collected about 500,000 in pilot payments or voluntary payments. This year the number will probably exceed $10 million based on the actions of the new administration.
Yeah, just the UPMC and PNC money for fleet alone.
So that accounts towards when you're...
Yeah, it's revenue.
Yeah,
It's absolutely
so
revenue.
It counts
Yeah.
towards revenue.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm assuming, and I know in talks that they're going to continue to,
We all do well when we all do well. And, there needs to be a recognition that I believe that we all, as city leaders, have a responsibility to do everything we can to alleviate taxpayers from the financial burden of running the city. As we talked about earlier, more than 50% of all city revenue comes from two sources. Comes from wage taxes and property taxes, and that's a direct hit on city residents. So anything that we can do as a city to alleviate the cost burden towards living here, I mean, this is an expensive government, and it falls on the shoulders of city residents to pay for.
Right. So let's look at a bright spot. Our debt ceiling is going to fall. We're going to have $30 million
extra $30 million,
excess
In
for-
2027.
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
So
which-
this is this
which
year's
will be helpful.
Yeah. This year we're at 78 million. That's what our debt service payment will be. And next year it drops to 48 million.
Yeah. And the years out, next 5 years, is that projected to fall even lower than?
No, it goes
it's-
up.
Yeah, it goes
Because
up
we
again.
took out bonds.
Because we're
and loans?
projected to keep
okay,
taking out
I
bonds.
remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay.
So it stabilizes. I mean, the significant increase that we saw last year and this year will go back down, but it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a 2-year surplus that we'll be looking at.
It alleviates
I
the
mean-
pinch point next year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
by $30
it
million.
immediately, all of that money goes towards other operating expenditures.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just looking to close that $44 million gap and try
Yeah.
not to go into our, obviously we've made the commitment to go into our rainy day fund again.
Yeah.
But I could see the importance of not doing that in the years to come.
It's just not sustainable.
Right.
Councilman,
Yes.
I apologize. I know the controller has a hard stop at 3.
Oh,
and
that's fine.
we have
Yeah, no, I'm
we
done
have our
now.
next presentation
Yeah.
also ready
Okay.
to go with OMB and Finance, which will probably cover a lot of these same topics. So
Okay.
if there are
Yeah.
any last questions from council members for the controller, any burning questions you didn't get to ask, we covered a lot here, but were there any last questions?
I have a hard line too. I just have one more.
Absolutely.
This is a simple.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure everyone
easy
gets-
answer. Yeah, I won't get into the weeds with it, but the interest earnings with the markets the way they've been, how are we losing money?
Well, no, we don't have the American Rescue Plan dollars invested anymore because
Yeah.
we've spent them.
Oh, so this
it's-
is in comparison to the American.
This is in, so it's 25 versus
Yeah.
24,
Understood.
and
Yeah,
in 2024 we had those COVID dollars invested, and so we've actually just pulled money out of the market.
Yeah. So we gained interest on all that money,
Yeah.
of course, and now
Yeah.
so we're
And, and it was projected to drop. I mean, it dropped significantly.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just the
wanna-
lack of.
I feel like the markets are going bananas and crazy and good in all the right
and
ways.
that
yeah.
is reflected in the health of the city's pension fund. Again, we're
Yeah.
at 78% funded, which is a huge bright spot as it relates to the city's financial health. And credit goes to the previous 4 administrations that have prioritized that annual commitment towards our workers and retirees, making sure that we
I
can
love
honor
seeing
that
money
commitment.
make money, and if we can get to a point where we could have $100 million surplus and just invest it and collect the interest off it, that would be a significance, and as we can see right in front of us here. So,
I think Director Gula probably feels the same.
okay, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
What a segue. Okay, so any final questions? I don't see any. I really want to thank Controller Heisler and your whole team who joined us today for sharing with us some of the insights that you found from the ACFR from 2025. Thank you for joining us today. We will allow you to get back to business and invite our team from OMB and Finance to the table to discuss. We've covered 2025. Now we'll discuss the first quarter of 2026 and hear a review of that. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's true. Like, think about where all of our grandparents. Exactly. It's like ridiculous. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Welcome.
I didn't make copies. I thought that Mark was going to make copies.
Yeah, I think you gotta go down one ramp.
Oh, sorry. Okay. 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 Turn off the microphone.
So while we're pulling up the presentation, if you'd all like to introduce yourselves, welcome. We have members of Office of Management and Budget and Department of Finance.
Hello, my name is Rhea Price, and I am the Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and currently the Acting Director.
I'm Jen Gula, the Finance Director.
David Hutchinson, the Assistant Director for Capital and Asset Management.
Elizabeth Sircone, Assistant Director for Operating and Special Revenue.
Thank you very much. So we have asked you here to provide a presentation and answer council questions around the what's the formal name? The first quarterly 2026 financial performance reports, or the quarter one report for 2026. We have gotten a preview of this in the Joint Financial Task Force report, which I appreciate still meets regularly, and wanted to make sure all council members also got the same information that we have, keeping the budget an all time of year consideration, not just November, December for us. So I'll let you provide your presentation and we'll take questions.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll go through all the slides. At certain points, I may ask Director Gula to chime in on revenues, and Assistant Director David Hutchinson and Assistant Director Liz Sircone to chime in on some operating and capital items as well. But before I begin, I just want to make sure everybody realizes that we're discussing Q1 results, okay? So these numbers are a bit stale at this point. I mean, we only have another week left of the second quarter. So we'll be having another one of these in about 2 months. We have to issue our quarterly reports 45 days after the end of the quarter. Okay, so what you see here, this is a very high level view of where we stand after the first quarter, and this shows our projections for the remaining quarters. Don't try to focus on any of these numbers on this slide. I'm going to zoom in on some things that I want everybody to focus on, okay? So, I mean, on this slide, though, you'll see that I have the adopted budget column and the reappropriations column highlighted. And so what I wanted to bring your attention to here was the impact that the reappropriations have on the budgeted expenditures, okay? So down at the bottom here, you see the $721.5 million figure. That is the amount that was in the 2026 operating budget as budgeted expenditures. However, and this is brought up by the Controller's Office in their presentation, and this is honestly something that I've been harping on a lot lately, but the large amount of reappropriations that we rolled over from 2025. And so that was a total of $36 million of expenses from 2025 that we rolled over to 2026. Now, what that has the impact of doing is that it increases the spending authority in 2026 by $36 million, and essentially gives the departments the ability to overspend their adopted budget. Okay, this slide, again, don't strain your eyes because I'm going to zoom in, okay? But I just wanted to focus in on the year-end estimates and in relation to the adopted 2026 budget. Okay, and here's where I zoom in, okay? Up top, you see what we budgeted for revenues. That was $707 million for revenues. Actually, no, $721 million in revenues, and where we see our the city ending the year at $707 million in revenues. And then on the expenditure side, we see ourselves ending the year with over $731 million in expenditures, whereas we budgeted only $721 million in expenditures. So what that means at the end of the day is right now, at the end of the first quarter, and looking at our projections for the remaining quarters, we're looking at over a $24 million deficit at the end of the year. Okay, some of this stuff I've already mentioned, key findings. We're currently projecting a $24 million deficit at the end of the year. Like I said, revenues, we're only projecting to take in $707 million when $721 million was budgeted. And expenditures are projected to end up $10 million over what was adopted. And that's due to the large amount of reappropriations that we rolled over from 2025 to 2026. At this point, I'm going to focus a little more on revenues. On this slide, I just wanted to highlight the large revenue categories that we are projecting to fall under budget. So there's 5 different categories for that. So those are licenses and permits, charges for services, fines and forfeitures, intergovernmental revenue, and interest earnings. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that in the next slide, and then I'll ask Director Gula if she wants anything to add. Okay, so first of all, in the licenses and permits category, so I took a look at every single object account under each of these categories. And so the reason, a large reason why we're going to fall under budget in this category is due to commercial and residential permits. Those are currently down. Whenever we look at the charges for services, the primary driver for that is EMS revenue. That is significantly down. As of today, only about $5 million of $28 million that had been budgeted for EMS revenue had been booked. However, whenever we looked into this a little more, it turns out that EMS is sitting on approximately $7 million. So, and Director Gula can probably speak more to that in a minute. Fines and forfeitures, whenever I double check this today, this may no longer be an issue. Like I said, these numbers in the quarterly report are a bit stale at this point. But we have collected $2.4 million so far in the second quarter when the projection only showed $1.4 million. So I think that right now we're in much better shape than we were at the end of the first quarter. Intergovernmental revenue, we are projected to fall under budget there. And one of the drivers for this, I discovered that there was $2.3 million budgeted for Pittsburgh water pensions, and that should not be there. That is actually resolved in the co-op that we do every year. So we will be removing that for the 2027 operating budget. And we kind of already discussed the interest earnings already, but the budget, just quite honestly, the budget for that was set too high. So that was based on us earning interest on a much larger balance than we currently have. So yeah, at this point, I'll let Director Gula.
Sure, so just to focus in a little more on the charges for service, and this kind of goes into services we provide. So when we don't have enough employees, sometimes it also takes a while to move revenues through the system and show up where we need them to, right? So EMS also, they contracted with, they have a third party that bills and collects for EMS services. And I think they moved to a credit card platform, the third party did. And so I think there's some nuance there with making sure that the revenue comes in and is efficiently, deposited and recorded from the third party credit card processor that they're using. And additionally too, when you also have like a staff shortage, it makes doing those functions a little slower and more difficult. So there's times, and finance department too has obviously at times felt the same, pain, where we can't efficiently get things on the books. So that's a caveat to what's going on with charges for services. Additionally, interest earnings. So we already had contemplated the fact that ARPA was going to go away and we were going to lose interest earnings because we weren't going to have as much money in the bank. But to add to that, the forecast gets done mid-year for budget season. In the fourth quarter of last year, there were also ratings, the Fed lowered interest rates. So that in turn also had an effect on what was projected in the budget. And actually currently it could at any time, like currently they haven't, but they could at any time lower rates. And if it's not expected, then it wouldn't be presented or forecasted. And it could also affect our budgeted revenues, so.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to the expenditure side. Now, what this slide shows, this is all of our departments, and it shows the first quarter actuals and the estimates for the remaining 3 quarters of the year. And you'll see that I have a number of departments highlighted here. Now, all of these are departments that we are currently projecting to go over their adopted budget. And I'll go into every one of these departments in a minute and give a brief explanation of why we anticipate them going over their budget. Okay. So back to the first quarter. So a total of almost $191 million was spent in the first quarter this year. That's versus about $160 million in the first quarter of 2025. So that's a $30 million or 19% increase. However, there are some anomalies that happened this year compared to previous years. So there were some expenses that should have been paid in 2025. We've talked about these in other meetings. But 2 of the big ones, of course, were the Pittsburgh water true-up. So that was almost $10 million that should have been paid in 2025, but instead that was paid in Q1 of 2026. Also, we were sitting on about $1.4 million in non-target trans-dev costs. So again, that should have been paid in 2025, but was not paid until the first quarter. Everybody remembers the snow event, the first quarter, so that was about $4.5 million in overtime and other expenses. A couple other things that I wanted to point out. Whenever we issue the second quarter report, you will see a bump in salaries and wages due to the Teamsters contract being adopted. So there was retroactive pay of about $222,000 that you'll see in the second quarter. One thing that I want to highlight is that the FOP is still in arbitration, and honestly, the projections that we have for police salaries and wages, they're probably too low because we have no idea how this is going to shake out. And as was mentioned by the controller, fuel is an issue. And again, this is something that is almost impossible for us to project for the remaining 3 quarters. So, but I just wanted to point out that right now, I mean, we still have over half the year left. And we have about, as of today, we had $1.6 million left. And that's about 45% of the budget remaining. But we're definitely going to exceed our budget for fuel. Okay, and like I mentioned in the 2 slides ago, I would go over all the departments that we're projecting to go over their adopted budget and why. So first of all, the mayor's office is projected to go over their budget, and this is primarily just due to the disparities study and the reappropriation that went over from 2025 to 2026 for that. Innovation and performance, the reason for that is because they are currently fully staffed, and they had a very large amount of reappropriations from 2025 to 2026. So that was $9 million. However, from what I recall, that was lower than what was reappropriated from 2024 to 2025 in IMP. Planning, they're also fully staffed, and this is due to their comp plan reappropriation. Public safety admin, so we're still investigating this, but we think that salaries are hitting this wrong, and they had some large reappropriations as well. EMS and police, I can't speak too much to this because this is more of a controller's office entry. So they're expected to go over their budgets, and some of this is due to an accounting correction that happened. These were actually from 2025 salaries expenses, but they're showing up on the books in 2026. So this is going to cause them to go over budget in likely in Social Security. And they also had some reappropriations, EMS in uniforms and supplies, and police that was due to the Axon reappropriation. DPW admin is expected to go over their adopted budget, and that is primarily due to utilities. DPW ops, their premium pay is expected to go over, and they had a vehicle reappropriation. DPW environmental services, their premium pay is likely to go over, and their roll-off boxes and office supplies have chronically been underfunded or overspent. DPW facilities, their premium pay is likely to go over, and they had a large number of reappropriations as well. And finally, DOMI. They've already overspent their workforce training budget, and they had large amounts of reappropriations in computer maintenance and bridge maintenance and equipment. Okay, so due to the potential deficit that we're looking at, and due to the large number of transfers out that I thought the controller, during her presentation, they did an excellent job of explaining why we probably shouldn't be showing these transfers the way that we do in the budget, and that we hope to correct in the future. But anyway, this is showing a potential for at the very least, a $41 million depletion in fund balance, even without the estimated deficit being factored in. And if we do finish 2026 with a deficit, which we most likely are, that could bring our fund balance to under $100 million, or 13.8% at the end of 2026. That's all on the operating side. Liz, or Assistant Director Sharcone, is there anything else that you would want to add as far as operating?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I'll move on to capital spending. The first quarter showed only, this number is correct, okay? It only showed $37,681 in spending. But I just wanted to point out that this is only for projects that were in the 2026 CIP. This is something that Assistant Director Hutchinson and I have been discussing on maybe showing capital spending in a different way, maybe in 2027, because I just don't feel it shows an accurate picture of what we spend on capital every year, the way that we do currently in the quarterly report. And also, I just wanted to mention that capital project spending is typically low in the first quarter because construction season doesn't usually begin until late spring. And at this point, I'll let Assistant Director Hutchinson chime in with anything else that he wants to as far as the CIP.
Yeah, just to Director Price's point, for the first quarter in 2026, inclusive of all budget years, all fund sources, we spent about $23 million. Right now, we're sitting at about $45 million. When the controller was up here with their presentation and they had the capital slide and they showed an actual negative balance, that's kind of good. It's almost the opposite of operating, where we want to be dipping back into the old years, spending down the old balances so that we're really recycling the money quickly and that the residents are kind of feeling the impact of their taxes, hopefully soon after they pay them to us.
Yeah, so like you said, our actual Q1 spending for capital was, you said $26 million?
$23 million.
Or $23 million. So yeah, that's something that we'd like to change our quarterly reporting to show that kind of spending as well. And I just wanted to show snapshots of the capital spending from the quarterly report. So, but again, you'll see that we only had $37,000. It only shows $37,000 in spending for the first quarter. And that was in, what was that in? My screen is...
Street resurfacing.
Yes, street resurfacing, yes. And I'm just speeding through these slides, okay? So. And then finally, ARPA spending. The first quarter spending for 2026, we spent about $4.2 million in ARPA. And so as of this number is slightly different from what the Controller's Office presented. And this is because this is as a result of first quarter numbers. Again, so this is a little bit stale. But there was approximately $16 million out of that original $335 million that we received from ARPA that we have to get out the door by the end of the year. And I'm fairly confident that we're going to be able to do that. And that's all I have as far as the slides. So we can take questions now.
Thank you, Acting Director Price and everyone. I will take questions in the same order as last time, unless anyone has an urgent stop time. But we'll start with Councilperson Charland. Oh, and sorry, just let me interject quickly. I have asked the clerk's office, who has both the controllers and this presentation in hand, to distribute that digitally to all council offices. So you'll have that, be able to really study some of those slides. Okay, Councilperson Charland.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation here, and I know it's a long afternoon of this, but I think it's helpful for us to get a scope of this and to hear that $24 million number allowed here. I didn't know this. You do the quarterly reports every quarter. Are we required to do that? Do we?
Yes, it's in code.
And is it required that they're sent to us, or do we send it to the state? Do we send it?
We send a communication to City Council with the quarterly report attached to it.
Okay, so it's like an internal a rule that we have amongst ourselves. So,
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I didn't know if we had like an accounting firm or anybody look at it.
No, and I can send you the section of City Code that requires it. Okay.
I was just curious if we were required to do it. It is helpful to see, and I thank the finance chair for making this a regular occurrence so that we can, as we discuss things, it's helpful to remember, keep in your head, like, we've got $24 million to find. With that, that's assuming that that spending levels will stay the same. The one that I'm kind of concerned about is last year we did half of Stop the Violence, and we only put $5 million towards it. Is that? This is assuming that we'd put $10 million to Stop the Violence, that we'd be at that $24 million deficit?
No, this is with the $5 million.
Oh, so even with the five?
Yeah.
Even with assuming that we would do $5 at the end of the year this year, or?
Right, for 2026.
Okay. Wow, we're running out of tricks here. All right. I mean, I guess just,
I do want to say that we are more conservative at the beginning of the year with our projections. And as numbers come in, at least in my experience in the past, working in the Office of Management and Budget, the end of year outlook looks a little bit better with each quarter. So, I mean, that's how it traditionally is, because like I said, we're just so conservative at the beginning of the year. with our projections, but we get a better picture as the actuals roll in.
I think it's concerning. I think we've all heard about public safety overtime and the real crisis that is. But it's concerning that you went through like every department and there's significant overages in all of them. And is that message being filtered through to other directors as well? I mean, is everybody getting that message that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know that the chief of staff, he's definitely calling things out with different departments. Yes.
Okay. Because I mean, we do have. I guess we've got the time now in June to fix some of these things, but we are getting closer and closer to the end of the year here.
Yeah, and we just started the budget season now, so I know the CIP communication went out well over a month ago, and I think their proposals are due July 1st, and we sent out the operating budget memo a couple weeks ago, and those proposals are due in a few weeks. So yeah, we're going to be starting to take a look at the 2027 operating budget very shortly.
Yeah, we're finishing up our capital budget requests. And, I hope those are funded, but at the same time, makes some of this look kind of bleak here. So with that, I just appreciate your presentation and appreciate the opportunity and your partnership all throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Warwick texted that she has a meeting, so I'll go to her next and then move on to others at the table. Councilmember Warwick?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, just really quickly, and this is actually a question I asked in the last session. So we have this. So if we're looking at projected spending and where we are, and budgeted. There's a $24 million deficit. Because our expenditures are higher than anticipated. Does that include the expenditures, like the rollover from 2025? So things that we
yes.
should have, we thought we were going to buy in 2025, but we're actually buying now.
Yes, that is one of the reasons why we are projecting a deficit, because there was such a large amount that was rolled over from 2025 to 2026, which essentially gives the departments the ability to overspend their adopted operating budgets.
Okay, so see, this is where, and I'm still a little confused. So, do we not reserve? So, like, if I'm doing my home budget, right, and I'm like, okay, I'm setting aside whatever amount to pay for, I don't know, a new car, but I don't end up buying the car till next year. I mean, that's still the same money. Like, are we not accounting for that? That it's like, okay, but that was 2025 money, so that money should actually be extra that we have in our, like, in hand in 2026? I mean, are we not clarifying, like, where those two buckets are? Like, this was the money we budgeted in 2025. We still have it, so it's still there. Or are we just
Okay,
like
so
we didn't spend it?
So whenever our
26 budget?
Okay, so whenever I say that we're looking at a $24 million deficit, that is just quite simply the amounts that we're going to be spending. $24 million more is going to go out the door than we're going to bring in 2025. And that is on the budget side. But then the controller's office, whenever they were going over their presentation, they mentioned that the unassigned fund balance of $166 million, that factors in that $36 million that was reappropriated. So they're just different ways of looking at it. I don't know if that...
and this is more for the public. Like, I'm not... And by the way, I'm not trying to minimize the fact that we are in a dire budget situation at all, right? I just is really just for clarity for the public. it seems to me that when we communicate about it, like, because when we say we're on a $24 million deficit, right, that makes it sound like I guess what I'm asking is, when we are looking at the funds that we have, are we keeping much? So let's say there's money from 2025 that we didn't spend just because we didn't get around to it. Are we as the city, as you all, as the budget office, like holding on to that money in a separate account, you know, maybe that's not the right word, but in a separate bucket to make sure that it is still there for us to buy whatever that thing was that we were going to buy?
Well, yeah, that's why we reappropriate it. And those numbers are in the restricted, or is it restricted or committed? Do you know, Jen? Fund balance?
Probably committed.
Yeah, the committed fund balance. The Controller's Office went over those different categories in their presentation, but that $26 million is accounted for there. And that is why we do the reappropriations, because we don't want that funding was budgeted in an operating budget year, and they may have contracts or purchase orders out for those items, and we don't want to penalize them in the upcoming budget by making them use their current budget year's funding for things that they had thought that they were going to pay for in the previous budget year.
Right, correct, I get that. So, okay, well, let me ask it a different way. The $24 million operating deficit, if we take out the rollover, so we're not counting money that, you know, we set aside last year and we just haven't gotten around to spending yet, what is that deficit? What is the deficit now if we take out those rollover expenses?
Oh, if we didn't have the rollovers, we wouldn't have a deficit.
Okay, so I mean, that's just kind of, I mean, again, this is just for, and maybe this is just in my own head, but then it's not really a deficit in the way that some of us might think. I mean, I understand from an accounting perspective, it's a deficit, but it's not a deficit, like from somebody thinking, oh, you know, I have negative money in my bank account or something like that, right? Like that's kind of how it sounds to the public, or we're dipping into our rainy day fund to cover this money. We're not, right? This is just an accounting term.
Well, one of the things I want to point out is that
yeah, go ahead. Clarify, please.
This is not factoring in those transfers that are outside of the expenditures. So that's $41 million there that's not accounted for in these numbers.
Okay, I guess I'm not tracking what you mean. Could you say that again?
Yeah, so whenever I say that we're looking at a $24 or $26 million deficit, that is only that I'm only saying that the operating budget, the items in the departmental expenditures are going to exceed the revenue that we're going to bring in 2026. But then outside of that, we have over $40 million in those transfers. You know, the Stop the Violence Fund transfer, the Housing Opportunity Fund transfer, those items, those total $40 million. That's not included in that $24 million deficit number. So no matter what, we are whenever we factor that in, we are looking at a deficit no matter what.
Okay, and that's going back to this issue of not counting those transfers out as expenditures.
Yes, absolutely.
But we now, not for Housing Opportunity Fund again, we talked about this before, but with Stop the Violence in particular though, that even though it's a transfer out, it's still money that we have. Like it's still money that we can use here at the city as opposed to sending it to the URA.
Yeah, we still have some control over it, yes.
Right, okay. All right, so I guess I would just ask, I don't know, I mean, maybe this is more for our folks in the media to kind of figure out how to communicate, but I don't know, it does just feel important to me when we are saying, like, we are, that the public understands that if we have a $24 million deficit, that if we don't count money that we set aside and saved from last year, we just didn't spend, we still have that money. then we don't have a deficit anymore. Right, that $24 million is really all just rollover from 2025. And it's on our books. I understand that it's on the books of like money that we are spending in 2026, but it isn't money that we are overspending per se, right? Like over our budget for 2026. It's just money that we had left over that we kept in our piggy bank, so to speak, or in our 2025 piggy bank, and we're just happen to be spending it now in 2026.
So I wouldn't normally do this, but I want to make sure that I ask this, council member, so you hear it too. Isn't it also that it's highly unusual the amount that we are carrying over this year, that has ballooned year after year, so that otherwise would be going into the fund balance, but we're just like holding on to this money and carrying it over, and that is ballooning in sort of a significant way.
Yes, that is correct. Maybe I should have included that table here, but in the Joint Financial Task Force meeting, I did have a slide that showed how that number has ballooned. I think I went back to 2017 or something like that, and at that time, that number was around $3 million. And so that number that has been reappropriated, it is ballooned to, from 2024 to 2025, it was even higher than the amount that we reappropriated from 2025 to 2026. But yeah, it is unusually large.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I'm glad, Madam Chair, you bring it up, and I do have to run, but because that is, right, that sort of points to like efficiency issues, like why are we having such a hard time getting money out the door? And I'm sure there are a plethora of process issues within the departments that can be, you know what I mean, can be scrutinized around that, but definitely something that we are, you know, the administration, and I'm sure that they are looking at. Anyway, that's all for me. I do have to run, but thank you so much for letting me jump the queue. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to acknowledge how many kind of like important points that we have covered that make it harder to talk about what cash is where, what expenditures are where, just in the course of this one post-agenda session. It's been like the difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting means that our budget looks different than the controller's look back on the budget looks because of different accounting methods that I think we brought up again just recently in Councilwoman Warwick's thing, the need to talk about transfers out as actually expenditures, which I don't know when we fix that, or as soon as we fix it, it'd be better. So then we can just have the same number in front of us instead of saying, well, it still is categorized as a transfer, but let's like all acknowledge that it's actually an expenditure, but we haven't like labeled it that way yet and all that kind of stuff. And then I think I will spend more time on this idea that even though our, let's say, 2026 budget has a certain amount of expenditures approved for each department, they really are also, there will be more money than we approved than that coming out of those departments because of last year's money still coming out. And that's what I'm understanding is the rollover expenditures. And then also I'll get back to, it's almost like the inverse. In our capital budgets, we are actually looking at 1 year, but we actually need to look at multiple years sometimes to see what actually total expenditures are. And this is something we go through every year with residents, at least I do, where they're like, why is my project defunded? And you're like, no, it isn't defunded. It's fully funded. It was just fully funded in last year's capital budget. It's not there's no new appropriation, but the old appropriation hasn't disappeared. You know, that kind of thing. So it's a very difficult conversation. We have to constantly remind ourselves how to talk about these things. So back to the contract rollovers and their increase over time, even though we don't really have a slide in front of us or maybe we do have a number. let me ask it this way. For the contracts, let's say, that are currently rolling over from 25 to 26, do you know how much of them are for stuff and how much of them are for services?
I don't have that figure for you right now.
I'd like to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're just talking about the operating budget.
Right.
So it's not like a fire truck.
No.
That we ordered it 4 years ago, but we still don't have it. And that's on the capital budget. So it's not one of these. I suspect, I have a hypothesis in my brain that 20 years ago, we wouldn't have seen this much because really our operating budget was just actual living being payroll, like people on payroll. And that because we do so much less with actual city employees and so much more with contracted services, subcontracted services, whether that's speed bumps or whether that's all of our paving or whether that's clouds-based INP services instead of literally rooms full of typists on, typewriters, that, we have more potential contracts. We have way more contracts than we used to. And so the business of each department is kind of like contracting and contract management in so much of our operating delivery of services on a daily basis. And so therefore there's more potential of it to roll over. 25 years ago, it would have just been like payroll that wasn't expended and it just got swept into the general fund and it didn't carry over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And I think you're onto something there.
So I think we should maybe dig further into, we can't do this afternoon, but what are things that we have subcontracted and are subcontracting about, just so we know? For many years, we objected to how much money we spend on these technology contracts, right? And yet we can't function without them. Because the information isn't sitting in index cards in a card catalog anymore or something, or, isn't in pieces of paper that are filed away as much as they used to be. So, we're not alone, right? It's not like the city of Pittsburgh has done something that badly compared to other cities, right? But we need to get a grip on that, I think. And yet there are still some ways, and, in some way we were just talking about it a short while ago at council this morning about how, we're relying on nonprofits to do recreation programming when we used to have employees who did it. So similarly, we have seen things like city steps built by subcontract that took 7 years and $1 million versus city steps that our carpentry division did in 48 hours for much cheaper. Won't last as long because they're built of wood, but I think we should have a discussion. Those are both maybe one of them is capital budget, one of them is operating budget, but to my point, that there are some things that we should just have a separate discussion about whether we should be subcontracting them out or whether we've just gotten to bad habits. I always have this kind of, storyline in my head that when we fired 50% of the city government employees, which was, I forget what year, in austerity, then it became our habit to be like, well, we don't have the employees to do these things. We have to subcontract them all out. Do we have diminishing returns now? Or have we just done it far too long so that it's just become a bad habit? So I just feel like that itself, we can maybe drill down into that one topic and see, and then it'd be cleaner for budgeting, but also maybe there's some places where we're just doing things that actually aren't cost savings. Separate, I don't know if you have any thoughts. How, where should we start? Is there, I think of Domi as a place, I think we've done this, but they started off where they hired, contractors to do flex posts. And God knows how many flex posts we have across the city now. Those are those like white sticks on the streets. Now, I believe we now can do those in-house. So that's an example. Yeah, I think IMP is maybe a little more difficult of a conversation, but maybe our next conversation we kind of drill down on that, or maybe you guys can do some homework and it can just be a briefing or something like that. I don't know. So, separately, the capital budgets. David, do you have any thoughts about how do we communicate kind of like, here are all the concurrent projects and how much is left in the pot for each one, like no matter what budget year it was in, so that people can kind of be like, oh, it's okay, my steps or my playground's still getting built, even though there's, it's council's not talking about it in budget season. So any ideas?
Yeah, we've had a couple different capital maps that have done pretty well, that started off pretty rudimentary in terms of just showing the location of the project. Now we have a version that also links to any Engage page that also can pull some accounting data if we can batch it. We had some communication issues, though, with the last administration where DOMI was doing a competing capital projects map that was more robust in certain ways and definitely had better outreach. More people were seeing that, so we kind of abandoned the larger capital one. But that's a tool that's definitely available to us. And then if there's more information we can add financially to any Engage page, we're always available to give that information to the project managers, because to your point, the public needs to understand that if they're just not seeing it in that year's budget, doesn't mean it's not happening. There's oftentimes multiple prior years of funding. Sometimes when we're in like a planning or design phase, it's especially hard for the public to understand that anything is going on. They're just not seeing a backhoe in their neighborhood making things happen, so that part gets difficult. But I think using the existing channels we have in terms of Engage could be a great asset for demonstrating to the public that the projects are still ongoing.
Great. Yeah, let's think of ways to do that. Even if it's a capital project that, oh shoot, I'm kind of confounding myself, but I have to give Chief Gilman a shout out for getting a roof on the concession stand of the Heth's baseball field. Getting a new roof on the concession stand, because we were begging, it was a capital budget request for years. I don't even think it makes it into the capital budget. I'm not sure it does, because he did it in-house, just city employees. But it still is a kind of capital asset, right? We have every one of our city buildings, including even the concession stands, are included as an asset. So I don't know where that goes, but it'd be nice to be able to show people where improvements have been made, no matter what budget year it's in. Okay, thank you. That's, I think, all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin just piggybacking off what Councilwoman Gross just said, and this is really not your responsibility, but you're right. I think we could do so much more in-house. I think we have a robust public works now. We hired, I think we put on 40 or so employees last year. And a lot of them are anxious to want it. The carpentry, for instance, they want to be part of a project. I have a historic building in my district now that would require really $1 million or so to really renovate the whole thing. But there are immediate things like fencing, like just cleaning it out, just that we can probably take on in-house. And I think we'll save a heck of a lot of money. I know just from being a general contractor for 30 years, when you operate and you're subcontracting everything out, well, you're duplicating the price of things. So I would love to talk with you as to, and I just think of a variety of things, but mostly regarding public works, what we could do. Demo. We pay, we sub most of our demo out. I think all of it, right? So demo's fun. I think we have capable bodies, and I really do. I think we could get dumpsters. We have dump trucks. We have everything we have, and we're not hamstrung. We're not waiting for a capital budget improvement. We're not waiting for the subcontractor to fit this into their schedule. We could do it tomorrow. So I like the immediacy of it, but most importantly, I think it could save us a lot of money, and we're going to need to look at finer things like that in order to save money. I think we could do that in-house. I can't speak to the tech part. I'm no help there, but I could speak to public works, and I think the equipment and the personnel that we have, and to utilize them better. and to stop subcontracting everything out that we can do. For instance, Councilwoman Gross's concession stand roof. So I have many projects like that I would love to move on tomorrow. And again, I like the immediacy of it more so as much as the cost savings. But so I agree with you 100% on that. We can make a list together and talk about things. I have multiple things in my head that I think we can do in-house, realizing obviously that most of our departments are very busy and utilized to the nth degree. But if it means cost savings, the type of cost savings I feel like we can find, then that's great. So just wanted to comment on that. You had mentioned permits and licenses is down. Their revenue is down. Why is that? Do we know?
Whenever I was looking at the individual object accounts, it looked at like the primary drivers was business and residential permits. So I have the spreadsheet here. I
And
can
building
bring it up.
permits.
Yeah.
And that could definitely
Is that a
be
reflection that we're not building, or people aren't building as much?
or not fast enough, because I mean, I think the current economy has a lot to do with that. The cost of goods is higher, so people aren't doing nearly as much as maybe they would have in the past.
Because I thought they always they turned over a profit. I mean, we count on a certain amount. I know it's not an extraordinary amount, but that's down. I'm just wondering what that tells us. Okay, I don't really need to know the answer to that right now, unless you have it at your fingertips. But so I did want to ask, of quarter one of 26, you projected a deficit of how much?
$24 million.
Okay, and a lot of that is expenses that we didn't anticipate, like the unpaid health care insurance, for instance, correct? That we paid.
I'm sorry. Are you referring to the VIBA issues, or you said healthcare insurance?
Well, unpaid retired health care insurance, I think there was $16 million or so that was brought over that we didn't anticipate in our budget, and we found out that the previous administration didn't pay the bill.
No, I don't.
That's not part of the expense.
No.
Okay.
So no, that was in the budget reopener. I think you're referring to some of the things that were budgeted with the VIBA trust fund. Is that what you're referring to?
You're probably right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But no. This first quarter, there was that $10 million water bill.
Yeah, that was unanticipated.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So that was one, and also the cost of the storm, which provided a lot of overtime, 4 point some million, I think you said.
And there's a couple $100,000 in outside counsel too in law that should have been paid in 2025 as well. Yeah.
Now I also know that the draft is going to accumulate a lot of overtime costs, and I know that was towards the end of April. Is that factored in this deficit, or is that figures in too late for that, and that will be factored in next one?
Well, so most of that is going to be reimbursed by the $2 million that we received from the state to cover the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, but we don't know exactly how much.
Oh no, I have those 100%. Figures. I can.
Okay.
I can provide.
So we
those.
didn't factor that in as part of the 24 million deficit.
No, because we're going to be reimbursed for that.
We're going to be reimbursed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that also falls outside of this particular Q1 report.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And this is the end of March.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Right. Okay. So yeah, quarter. Oh yeah, January, February, March. We're talking quarters. Right. Okay. Okay. Well, that answers my question. Of the monies that we roll over that we were speaking of, okay, even though we roll them over, but is all of that money accounted for certain projects, and whether it be capital or operating, or is there some of that money is like canceled capital projects or abandoned projects?
Whenever we refer to the reappropriations, that's the operating budget only.
It's operating budget
and
only.
So what those are amounts that were tied up in a lot of like professional and technical services contracts. So it's already obligated.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right. And that's why you don't factor it in, because it's already obligated.
And then there's also purchase orders were created, but we may not have received that item or paid for it. So those would roll over as well.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be responsible to factor them in your outlook, because they're accounted for. And we still have to put that money toward the whatever operating costs those are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And you project at the end of 26 deficit to be how many millions?
Just looking at the budgeted expenditures and revenues, between 24 to 26 million dollars.
24 to 26. And the first quarter was how many millions did you factor in for the deficit?
All that is together.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But didn't you factor in for the first quarter the deficit? Wasn't there a number on that as well? Like I thought the first quarter was higher.
So I mentioned in relation to the first quarter compared to last year. So yeah, we had $30 million more in expenditures in Q1 2026 than we did in Q1 2025.
Okay. But we don't have a flat number as to, first quarter, January, February, March, we're in deficit of...
We really don't budget that way.
Okay.
I mean, we just budget for the year. So, but we don't really have a monthly budget set aside for each department.
Got it. That's really it for me. It's very informational, a little sobering cases, but at least I think we know what we need to do as a city, and I feel like we're trending in the right projection. I feel we have a very responsible council and administration, so we have some work to do, but any way we could save expenses, we'll be looking at them, whether it's cutting or raising new revenues, whatever it might be. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we've covered a lot. I don't want to belabor too much. I do want to bring up a couple things. One is, obviously, we exited Act 47, which is like the words we don't want to hear, in 2018. And although I know that we're not hitting any of the marks to be, at risk of entering that again, essentially, like for any public watching, like essentially like city bankruptcy. If the fund balance reaches 13.7%, how close do we think that brings us to just monitoring? Like, at what point do we start to really monitor and say, like, okay, this is starting to become a little bit more of an emergency? I know with 5-year outlooks, that's really where we're monitoring, right? But is there anything else that kicks in to help us get ahead of any kind of yellow flags, if not red flags?
Well, I think that point is now. So we've already, 2025, we did end the year with a deficit. And there are a number of criteria for entering Act 47 where after you reach 3 years of that, you qualify for Act 47. So we have definitely reached year 1 of that. And if 2026 shakes out the way that we're projecting, we'll be in year 2 of that. And then if you just, this has been mentioned a number of times already, but the trajectory of our fund balance just continually goes down. So we will quickly, in just a couple years, we'll be underneath that 10% fund balance percentage, probably in as close as 2027. And if we continue just as is, we'll quickly deplete our fund balance before the next 5-year period is over.
So we're there. I mean, we were there a couple years ago, and we were really pretty concerned, but we're there still. Yeah, we're in it. Mm-hmm. On this discussion of the operating deficit, and I want to reiterate what was brought up by other members and what you've reiterated. This is really just looking at like money in, money out versus budget this year. There's lots of other factors at play. There's lots of different ways that you can look at the numbers. But that is, am I wrong in stating that this is down from and improved from an initial $41 million? And I'm wondering if we think, like, how confident we are that this is going to remain, because we're already well into quarter 2, remain this amount throughout the rest of the year. How does that usually go?
Right. Like I kind of mentioned this previously. Like I said, the first quarter projections are always very conservative. And initially, at some meeting that we had with the Joint Financial Task Force, whenever we did a first pass through our projections, we were projecting a $40 million deficit. But then I know on the revenue side, when Director Gula, did a deeper dive into the revenues and saw the way that things were coming in, she revised those. So there was a significant difference in those projections, as opposed to that first time that we presented that. And then likewise on the expenditure side, all the budget analysts did a deeper dive in all of their departments. And so those were revised as well. And like I said, in the past, in my experience, not only in OMB, but in other places that I've worked at, other municipalities or at Pittsburgh Water, the outlook tends to get a little better with each quarter. So, but we tend to be much more conservative at the beginning of the year because we don't want people to be too confident. And so we want to be very cautious. And so, like I said, we only have one more week left of this quarter. However, the books still remain open for almost another month. So we won't begin our work on the second quarter report for another few weeks yet. But we'll have a better picture in about a month.
Yeah, look forward to seeing that. And then relative to the departmental departments that are over budget, is the sheer number of departments that are over budget typical? I just don't really remember or have a sense, where I wasn't finance chair. And then what can we do? What can we do this coming year to better estimate needs, even if we don't have the funds that we wish we had? How can we anticipate needs better or budgets better going into 2027?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, is this typical to be projecting so many departments to be going over budget? In my experience, absolutely not. That is a large number of departments that we're looking at going over budget. I think that, especially whenever you look at that large amount of reappropriations, the departments don't even necessarily have the capacity to take on a lot of the projects that we have put into the operating budget. If they did, they would be finishing those project or those operating initiatives in that budget year, but they're not. So they're rolling over into the next one. So I think that that's something that we could do better. And maybe we should tell departments, listen, you're asking for this much money for the upcoming budget year whenever you have $12 million from 2025 that was reappropriated to 2026 and work that was not completed. Maybe you should focus on completing that before starting these new initiatives. So that's something that we could look at.
Sure. And then just to ensure that I'm remembering correctly, I said it, but I wanted to make sure I was right, that if in previous years unspent operating dollars that, if it was a self-imposed deadline by the end of the year and they didn't spend it and they didn't roll it over like we're doing now, that would go back into the fund balance? Was that typical?
Oh, yeah.
Is that kind of how we built up our fund balance?
Yeah, for the most part, at the end of the year, if funds, this is in the operating budget only, not the capital budget. In the operating budget, if funds are not spent or obligated in a contract or a purchase order, those unspent funds go into the fund balance.
We've been rolling them over the last couple of years, but otherwise they would go into the fund balance.
Yeah, we're not, but I want to clarify, we're not rolling over the entire unspent amount in each department. So
Right. Yeah, there's still some that's going in.
Correct,
But
yes.
for those sort of projects that they projects that they wanted to, software that they wanted to get done and they didn't.
Right, then that goes into the fund balance. If they never got around to putting it into a contract or submitting legislation for it or issuing a purchase order, anything that's left over right there, that goes right into that fund balance.
I want to make sure I'm not getting confused.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that the rollover meant that we were rolling over cash. I thought it just was rolling over obligations. So again, just to put it in smaller numbers, if you had, if City Council in the 2025 budget had, $100,000 allocation for DOMI to do something, but it didn't get done. And then in 2026, City Council approved DOMI for like a $500,000 budget. It's like there's a shadow $100,000 that's also going to be spent. The dollars aren't actually there. Am I misunderstanding that?
If I can jump in. So at the end of the year, what operating analysts do for their departments is send out what's called an open orders report. So we are going through and looking at all of the committed encumbered funds, which in order to do that, you have to go through the contracting process. You have to have something, an invoice or an agreement in place. Only those funds are eligible to be rolled over. And that means, we put in a uniform order for public safety, but we haven't received the funds yet. So we're not going to pay the money until the goods are in hand. So we're still waiting for uniforms. Or we, have a bridge maintenance contract that hasn't moved yet, either for supply chain or just, timing. So we rolled some funds over for DOMI, for example. A lot of professional services for our tech has rolled over, but, unspent salary funds, unspent supply needs, just general operating dollars, those do not roll over. They are not eligible to be rolled.
So the way I've written it down in my notes is like previous year budget contracts rolling over. I think in the beginning of the presentation, you were like, that's actually increasing the expenditures in that department over and above
arbitrarily
what the 2026 operating budget says it'll be.
Yep.
Correct. So, and some of the money may be in hand and some of them won't.
So for that DOMI bridge maintenance, like they have $1 million, I think, of money that they didn't get around to spending in 25, but they also have money for spending in 26. So what might happen is they spend the 26 amount and the 25 amount, but in our mind, we only were thinking in this term of $26.
And it's especially a problem for City Council, and because the 2025 revenue all got spent. And so both the 2020 leftover expenditures and the new 2026 expenditures we're trying to pay with only 2026 revenue, basically.
Correct. Yes.
So again, I just want to make sure that like I can say it right. That I'm like, okay, I appreciate that.
I think the way that we've been framing what constitutes a deficit has changed from last year to this year, which is we're now looking entirely at the adopted budget result instead of the final budget result. So we're saying we have what we think will go out the door plus what didn't go out the door last year, and incorporating that money into the baseline, but we're not saying that reappropriated amount needs to go, to your point, for the revenue that's only this year.
So in a way, again, I don't want to give it back to the chair, but we, in the 2026 budget, even though we reopened it, maybe a better practice would be to have like line items of like 2025 items that have carried over, like a call out for those.
The problem with that is that we don't know what that's going to be until the budget's closed. So until the year has ended.
Yeah, but we have until the end of January to fully close, the 2026 projected budget. We had till the end of January to do that. So it seems like on each year, even though we vote it at the end of December because we have to, that's how it's written, we can still kind of do those clarifying carryovers could be acknowledged like in January of the following year.
Yeah, and that's typically whenever that exercise is done. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The report is sent out at the end of the year, usually in early December, and what we certainly can and probably will do moving forward is be a little bit more hands-on. It's not going to necessarily be left open to the department directors or their fiscal people to say, we can close this or let's leave this open. It's no, you rolled this into 2026. You have not spent it yet. We're not rolling it again into 27.
This happens very rarely, but sometimes we will find funding from not just the previous year's operating budget, but there will be funds from several years ago that is rolled over for multiple years. So that should not be happening. So
yeah, and that should be flagged.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That helps me kind of understand not just where we are, but what we should do differently. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and then we all know this here, but the fund balance is really important, because even when we have projects that we would love to be able to do and love to be able to accomplish, by saying like, no, we don't have the capacity to do that this year, we're gonna not roll that over and say that we're gonna do it next year. We're gonna put it into the fund balance, and all the money that we can be putting into the fund balance is important, because despite criticism in 2020 when the COVID pandemic hit, we were able to avoid major layoffs for 6 months because we had a fund balance to be able to pay our staff. And had we been at the minimum level, not just the recommended level, we wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have had to lay off staff before the federal government came in and saved us. So, anyway, I don't think I have any other questions. We've covered a lot today. Is there anything else from members? I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate all the time you spent here, both before you came up to the panel and during. Any closing thoughts? I know we'll be back here in just a few months to discuss quarter 2 and see where this compares, and I think having a comparison to quarter 1 would be extremely helpful. But anything you'd like to close with?
I don't. Any of you?
Okay. All right. Well, with that, having exhausted the business of this post agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.